Good morning, everyone. We're excited to have you here today. Let's go ahead and kick things off in about 2 minutes. Just to get started here, I'm Brandon Winter. I'm the CRO here at Stu-Kent. Excited to have our panelists with us who we'll be introducing in just a moment. But why don't we have you guys first jump into the top right corner, click on that chat. Let's do a quick icebreaker. Where are you from? And what shows are you watching right now? Go ahead and chat in a couple of those answers real quick, and we'll just kind of get started, wait for other folks to join us here for the next minute or two. Snowy Philly. All right, Barbara, excited to have you. Okay. And she's watching WandaVision. Excellent. Murray's here from Winnipeg. Welcome, Murray. Karen, excited to have you here with us. Icy Louisville, I'm seeing trend here. Gary, good to have you. Out in Nebraska, also watching WandaVision. Okay, we got some Marvel fanatics here. Excited to see that. Carolyn coming to us from North Carolina. Excited to see you, Carolyn. Cheryl from Oklahoma. Ron, good to see you here from Kansas. Perfect. Bonnie from South Carolina. Rob, good to have you. Warm Orlando. I'll take that right now. That sounds fantastic. Oh, another Kansas. Good to have you with us, Sean. Oh, we're going too fast here. Oh, Pamela, the Great British Baking Show. So my kids love that. I've got 5 boys in there. They haven't proven themselves in the kitchen, but they enjoy watching the show. So Meg, good to have you here from New York. All right, it's going too fast. Megan from Massachusetts. Awesome. I spent a couple years out in Boston. Love that area. Colleen, good to have you with us from New York. Pat, Nebraska. Excited to have you guys. Well, thank you very much. We're so excited to have the opportunity to speak with you today about certifications, and especially excited for our panelists and the perspective that they have. So by way of introduction, first, Brandon Winter here. I'm the CRO at Stu-Kent. And if you guys haven't already tested this out, so the top right corner, you've got the chat. We'll have a few of our marketing team members. On occasion, we'll be jumping in with some polls they'll send your way, or some links to some additional products or opportunities. So keep an eye out for those. By way of introduction of Stu-Kent, so we've been around for about 7 years now. We specialize in digital marketing courseware that's up to date, and it's paired with hands-on learning. So this is right in our wheelhouse when it comes to digital marketing certifications. We're excited to talk more about that. And we're in roughly 3,000 institutions at this point. So in terms of the state of the webinar and the agenda here today, we'll discuss a few upcoming events. I'll introduce our 3 panelists, and each of them will take roughly 10 minutes to do a bio on themselves and the experience that they've had with certifications in the classroom. Then we'll follow that up with about 30 minutes of Q&A, and that's a wrap, and we'll be sending out the recording to each of you. So stay tuned for that. There's going to be 2 quick polls that come through today. So be prepared to jump on those. We'd love to see your responses. There is an SDS, Stu-Kent Digital Summit, that will be coming up March 12th. So if you haven't been to one of those before, it's an awesome way to get a perspective of both industry and academics who will be sharing their perspective. That will be followed by our new panel event on how to build a digital marketing program. So if your school is talking about how to build a digital marketing program, or maybe you have one in the works and are looking to revamp it, March 26th, we'll be doing that with Stacy Schmollen-Schwartz, Dr. Joy Hahn, and Nathan David. So mark your calendars for that, March 26th. And make sure you get exclusive access to the new Stu-Kent Digital Summit certifications. So there's going to be details coming in at the end of this webinar. So we've got a certification coming your way from Stu-Kent. Okay, now for our panelists, the people you want to hear from. First up, we've got Karen Freeberg from the University of Louisville in Kentucky. Brianne Mertz from Louisiana Tech University in Louisiana. And John Planusen from Queen's University in Canada. And John told me his students call him John Planucens, or Professor Planucens. So feel free to address him as such. All right, Karen, we're going to go ahead and kick it off with you. If you wouldn't mind turning on your mic and camera, and you'll have the floor now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. And I'm really honored to be here. And I'm just, again, I'd like to thank everyone at StuCan, Brandon, for the opportunity to be here. You guys are doing such tremendous work to help high school, college, and beyond, great ways that we can really foster a great dynamic learning environment for our students in and out of the classroom. So I'm very grateful to StuCan for everything that you're doing. So as mentioned, my name is Karen Freeberg, and I am an associate professor at the University of Louisville in strategic communications. And I do want to put a little asterisk by my name. I always have to introduce myself now as being a nice Karen, because my name has kind of gone into kind of pop culture status, not necessarily for the right reason. So I always try to start that off. So I'm a nice Karen. There are those of us out there. So I'm really passionate, very excited about this panel and topic, because certifications have been such a fundamental part of my work in and out of the classroom. So at the University of Louisville, I've had a chance to create and implement several social media oriented classes. So that is actually one of the areas that I do a lot of research in and teaching. And so I feel that this is really a great topic to kind of talk about, the benefits of certifications, how I kind of got started with them, and where we can go further in implementing certifications in our classes and beyond. So the very first time that I actually started using certifications in the classroom was back in 2013. And it was by accident, actually, because I was asked at the University of Louisville to create a social media class. And I was always looking for ways to give students real world opportunities that add to their resumes, to their portfolios. And I actually was on Twitter, and I found another professor at the time who was teaching at Syracuse University talk about this Hootsuite University. And at the point where I was like, what is this? What are you talking about? And he was like, well, this is a certification program teaching students how to use social media using Hootsuite. And I was like, okay, how much is this going to cost? And he's like, it's free for students. And I'm like, yeah. And pro certifications in the classroom ever since. So I've kind of evolved over the years with my types of certifications. And so I've used Hootsuite. They have a social media certification. I've also used HubSpot's certification. So they have a wide range of different tools and resources. So if you're teaching social media, for example, they do have a free certification in social media marketing. You may see a familiar face in that as well. HubSpot's been great, but there are other certifications out there focusing on different areas, like Google, for example, has analytics, ads, digital marketing, and then you also have BrandWatch that focuses on listening. There's a wide range of certifications. I'm just it's so great to see how many certifications are out there for students to capitalize and use. So, but the big thing is, how do you, one, decide which certification to choose from, and also what else can you do, with certifications? And to answer your question, it really comes down to the class. I feel that, in my view, I've assigned maybe 1 or 2 certifications at the most. It's always a supplemental assignment. It's not the main kind of semester-long assignment that the students are able to, finish. But it is something that I've included across the board. And I think it really depends on what are the overall learning objectives that you feel that the students need to master. So I use the HubSpot certification for my undergraduate course. May use Facebook Blueprint and other certifications for my graduate level. So really it depends on which one, fits with your class. So, and that's something too I'd be happy to talk about as well. But I also wanted to talk too, for those of you who are interested in kind of seeing what you can do in and out of the classroom that also helps in with research. And I'm very familiar with how the expectations for producing research, especially for higher education institutions. I know I was kind of there, and it was actually because of certifications that I looked at, possibly doing one of my research areas in social media pedagogy. And so, because one of the things that I was finding was interesting among my colleagues when I was talking about certifications, they were like, well, what do people think about it? Do students feel that they're gaining any value from certifications? And what does the industry think? And so we actually did a study, a few colleagues of mine, Emily Kinsky, Carolyn May Kim, Matt Cushion, and William Ward, we came in from all different universities and we were like, okay, let's answer these questions. We're researchers too, along with teachers. So we did this cross-institution study looking at the overall effectiveness of Hootsuite. You know, we surveyed before the class started and after the class how students really perceive their understanding of social media, but then we also did interviews with professionals. So that was really something that we wanted to kind of explore, and we got that published in the Journal of Public Relations Education. And since then, there's been a lot of certification research that has been conducted to kind of evaluate the effectiveness overall of certification. So if you're looking for areas to do research or you're being asked by your institution to do more, this is a budding, growing field that has a lot of potential and a lot of value for those of us who are deciding whether or not we want to incorporate certifications into our classrooms. And I'm very grateful for, you know, kind of tying, you know, certifications in my classes, because it really opened up the, you know, avenue for me to doing teaching research, which I've been able to kind of build upon a reputation in the academic field, which has helped me get tenure. And the process right now, I'm in the process of going up for full early, and it's because of my teaching and research integration. So if you're looking for doing something more than, you know, just incorporating teaching, if you're able to say, okay, can I get with two birds with one stone, you can actually do research, you know, utilizing and exploring certifications in the classroom and be able to publish that research in an academic journal, but also, you know, bringing value to your classes. And so I know Brianne and John will have some additional resources and best tips on how they've included certifications in their classes. But I know that Stukin is collecting a lot of resources from each of us that we will be able to share with you. So the resources that I have include a couple of assignments that I've included certifications, so you can see what type of things you can do with your students. Also some research articles that have actually explored the effectiveness of certifications in the classroom. And then I've also included my graduate level social media class syllabus, so that you're able to see how I've incorporated certifications in my classes. And happy again to, you know, answer any questions you guys have after you hear from Brianne and John. So I'm really excited to, you know, again, to see the conversation and what we all are able to share and grow together on certifications.
Karen, we really appreciate it. Next, we have Brianne Mertz from Louisiana Tech University. So Brianne's going to be turning on her camera here and her microphone, making sure that's set up.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay, good deal. But yeah, first of all, just thank you, Stukin, for this opportunity. And it's an honor to be alongside both of you, John and Karen. You two are both incredible educators. And I'm just honored to be speaking alongside you today. So as Brandon gets those slides pulled up, like Karen said, I'm going to dive in a little bit into first quickly about my background, but then for the majority of my segment, I'm going to be talking to you about what I did with my class, how I integrated the certifications, as well as the Stukin material, and we'll just go from there. Okay. So this is just a quick decade at a glance. This is essentially what I've been up to for the past few years. I obtained my undergrad in management in 2016, my MBA in 2018, and now I'm currently a third-year doctoral candidate at Louisiana Tech University. While I was in school, I established two businesses, Brandadell Photography and Mertz Consulting LLC. So those were both within the field of marketing, and I've really learned a lot and had a lot of fun with those. I also worked as the admissions specialist for the College of Business, and did a lot within digital marketing strategy in that role. But those experiences essentially led me to where I am today, which is in the third year of the doctoral program, working on dissertation, working on research, and then teaching. So just to give you a little snippet of my teaching philosophy and then how that is in parallel with what I've done with the student material and certifications. I just wanted to breeze through these quickly. The first is application of various learning styles. So essentially what I strive to do here when I'm developing my classes and when I'm teaching is to be sure to not rely on one element more than another, and really try to be holistic in how I am both developing the class and how I'm teaching. Because we all learn in different ways, and I want to be sure to be aware of that and provide opportunities for them to internalize information in different ways. Relevance, that's also really important. I remember thinking just a few years back as a student, how is this relevant to me? How can I actually take what I'm learning in class and use this to my advantage, you know, in the workforce and in interviews and things like this? And so when I'm developing, you know, the course and when I'm teaching, I'm always thinking about how can I create content that is valuable both for the student, but then also it's going to be valuable to their future employers. And so that's key as well. And then practical application. I really heavily try to develop things in a way that provides as much experiential learning as possible, and really giving those students a chance to not only learn the material from the textbook, but then also be able to put that into practice and apply it. And I think certifications and things like Mimic Social do a great job of allowing us to do that as teachers. So for what I use in my class, the class title is digital and content marketing. And it's essentially these 4 components, and I'm going to break them down for you a little bit more, and you'll be able to see how I've actually integrated that into my syllabus in a minute. But I am using, oh yeah, and I see it dropped in the chat over here. So you guys will have access to my syllabus, my students' responses to how they perceive the class on the other end, and feel free to use whatever you want from there. I want to be fully transparent and hopefully give you guys some good ideas that you can pull away from and maybe pull into your class eventually. But the Marketing Essentials textbook, that is what I teach from primarily. I also use the Mimic Social simulation and then industry certifications as well as presentations. And when I'm speaking about presentations, that's more like a project form. So I have students do an individual presentation, a group project presentation related to like social media audits. And then also I bring in real world presenters and different roles within marketing to kind of give students an idea of what they could potentially step into post-graduation. So just a little snapshot of one of the elements of my syllabus. This is essentially how I've broken down my course. You'll notice there's 5 blocks. The first block is related to certifications, and I have been pretty heavy on the certifications and simulation as far as requiring a good bit. We're on the quarter system here at Louisiana Tech, so there's 10 weeks. I break that up into the first 5 weeks being certifications. So essentially students are doing a certification every week. I have 3 Google certifications and then 2 HubSpot certifications. And then the second half of our quarter, so the last 5 weeks of my class, they're then in simulation mode. They're doing 1 to 2 rounds each week. And they, at the end, then turn in their certifications to me and upload that. Of course, then I have those little individual presentations, the group presentation, and class participation. And if you have questions about class participation or funny little words that I have like feedback sandwiches, that is all in my my syllabus that you guys have access to. So, but yeah, I will say it is very exercise heavy. I don't actually have tests or quizzes. I rely very heavily on that experiential learning. And part of my concern at the beginning before I did that was, are they going to learn as well? Are they going to, work as hard? And I actually think that the students worked a little harder. They actually had to put in more time into diving into the content than they would have if they would have been studying for a test. And a lot of students seem to communicate to me actually that they really appreciated this kind of untraditional class structure. But yeah, right down the middle, I mean, you can kind of see there certifications and simulations that made up half the course, and then the other half of the course was related to the participation and projects. So I want to show you, part of my participation is integrating a pre and post survey. The pre-survey, just kind of trying to get an idea of what are the perceptions of my students, like what are they expecting, how can I make this as relevant to them as possible, and then the post-survey helps me gain an understanding of what they liked best, how I can improve, how the class can improve. But I was really excited about this one. One of the questions that I asked was, what were 3 of your favorite assignments or activities or elements in this class? And 61% of the students mentioned that certifications were in their top 3. And so I pulled a couple of their comments just because I wanted you guys to see what they were specifically saying. And I had 26 respondents. My class size was 35. So for the most part, I had the students respond here. But you can actually see all 26 in my folder if you want to, just have more ammo potentially for your department of saying like what students actually think about having certifications integrated. But a lot of just back-to-back people saying, we love the social media simulation, we loved the Google Analytics, the Google Ads. They did mention guest speakers, but you can see that HubSpot certifications, Google Analytics, individual presentations, Mimic Social. So this was really encouraging to me because not only were they, responding like this through this forum, I also had a lot of them come up to me and just say, Bree, this was so, so helpful. So that was exciting. When it comes to guest speakers, I guess my best advice on pulling in guest speakers is really just to get into your network and your connections. You might have a friend who has a friend that then would be a great speaker. And I found that the students really love this. It really helped tie together a lot of the things that we were talking about. The guest speakers, I would ask them to talk about what industry certifications they thought were valuable in their role. And that helped kind of solidify what I was doing in class. So for example, Malcolm Neely, I was able to pull in through one of my colleagues going to college with Malcolm. He's the marketing coordinator for the Chicago Bears. And so he was able to tell the students all about his role, what he does to, on a day-to-day basis, what they value if they're, going to be hiring a student as an intern or into a full-time role, what's important to them. And so the students really love that, especially the kids who are interested in sports. Another guest speaker that I brought in was Joan Kemper. She is an influencer with over 350,000 followers, and it was really neat for her to kind of show 2 sides of the story. Being the influencer and what that looks like for her, but then also what it looks like if we were trying, if students in the future were trying to collaborate with influencers and bring them in to promote a brand or a product. She kind of gave us like a behind the scenes look at all of that. And so she actually was able to come in class and speak. Of course, this was during, COVID's still going on. So I tried to kind of switch it up a little bit. We had some students in person, or some speakers in person, some over Zoom. Malcolm was over Zoom, obviously, being from Chicago. We didn't fly him in, but Kemper was able to come in, so that was nice. As far as student success stories, this is just, as teachers, as educators, of course we want to see our students succeed. And I think this really spoke volumes. And honestly, it made my quarter. I was so happy to hear this from one of my students. She ended up sending me this message, and she did give me permission to share it. But essentially, she was telling me that because of what she had learned in my class and the different things that we had the students do, she was able to get a job. And that was what stood out to the employer. And in the interview, the lawyer who was interviewing her was impressed about Google Analytics, that she had that certification, and she loved all the ideas that my student was able to bring to the table, which she brought to the table because of my class. And so that was really exciting. I also had another student in my class while I was still teaching get an internship because one of the nonprofits that I was consulting for had brought in their marketing director to sit in on my class and take my class. And he ended up being impressed with one of my students and pulled her in. So yeah, it's really exciting to see how the certification process, the simulation process, it enables our students to not just have an understanding, but to have put it into practice. And like Karen said, have takeaways to bring into the interviews, to put on their resume, to put on their LinkedIn. And I see nothing but wonderful things that can come from it. So I will be looking forward to hearing questions from you guys in a little bit. The second half of the workshop will be question and answer. And yeah, that's all I have for you today. So we'll switch it over to the next panelist. Thank you so much.
And our third and final panelist is John Planusin. John's going to go ahead and turn on his video and mic here. Let me pull up his slides. There you go. Take it away, John.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks to Brianne and Karen, and to all of you who are attending. So my analogy today is basically going to be like cooking a meal. So my first suggestion for those of you who cook is, you know how important all the ingredients are. If you leave out one ingredient, it's going to taste like crap, right? And so I'm going to share with you the ingredients in my course. The certifications is certainly one of them. And my opening message to you is if you're not doing certifications, give your head a shake. You got to get on that. And just as Karen said, LinkedIn is a big deal in Canada. And we know that everybody's CVs or resumes are trolled. One figure I heard at least 12 times a day. And what they're looking for in the world of digital marketing are descriptors and verbs and nouns related to social media and digital. And so you want to help your students optimize their resume for that. So, but let me start with Bloom's taxonomy. I love it and I hate this. I love it because it works. I hate it because my thesis supervisor, it's almost like we had to get this tattooed on our butts. And basically what it says is sort of like Maslow's hierarchy. And basically what it says is that when you're thinking about the educational experience for your students, there's different levels from the bottom to the top. And so for me, my focus is mostly on the top. And for a variety of reasons. Can they create, can they assemble, construct, design, formulate? Can they put what they've learned into practice? That's the nature of this course. So I have two sections of third and fourth year students, each capped at 55. I'm allowed to have 2 teaching assistants for each course. The first tip I'll give you is if you can have teaching assistants, the only teaching assistants I pick were the top students from the previous class. Students who, well, they had to apply, but got great marks, A+ grades, also had lots of certifications, et cetera, et cetera. So, so given that, this is my grading scheme. So it follows to some extent what Stu Kent advises in their Digital Essentials workbook. I love the landing page optimization. And the reason we do the landing page optimization assignment in teams of 2 or 3 is because, as you can see at the bottom, the largest component in our course is they have to create, launch, populate a blog, and you know, get traffic, and then validate the fact that they understand how to market organically or through paid. And the landing page optimization assignment is a great way to do that. A digital certificates is worth 10. And here's how it works, similar to Karen. We give them a list of 5 Googles and 5 HubSpots. They can pick any 5, but they can only use those 5. And that has come from the recommendations from the TAs. We've gone through lots of different iterations, and I'll show you some examples later. But these 10 that we show them, they're all good. And we don't care which ones they get. And they also, like Karen, have to do them early on in the course, and everybody gets that. In terms of the final project, we give them the option of doing a Shopify site, a social media campaign for a business, or interview 2 digital marketers. The interview, students that do that, that's because they have taken this course, which is an elective, and they don't want to do the work required for Shopify or the social media option, and or they have an idea of a company they want to work for, so they will interview that person to try to get their foot in the door. In terms of how we keep track of all this, I apologize, this is a bit small, but what you see here, this is for the Shopify projects and the blogs. These are the teams in section 1 and section 2. These are the URLs for their Shopify sites. And these are all the URLs. They must do the blogs. They don't have to do the Shopify. And why we like Shopify, there's a couple of reasons. First, we have a lot of our former students working at Shopify. It's almost like the Queen's Commerce Mafia in there. And two, Shopify is really friendly, makes it easy for our students and provides some training and some support if they need it. We evaluate their sites based on these criteria at the bottom: home and landing page, their photos, details, colors, impact, videos, stories, likes, and then impact, et cetera, et cetera. And you can get this from my downloads. But for me, this is what I like the best. I like the best that, you know, they go through the StuKent materials, they do the quizzes, and I'm a big fan of the quizzes in StuKent because that forces them to learn the concepts and quickly show that they have mastered the concepts in the chapter by chapter, and then they get to apply it to real world blogs and sites, or work for businesses that want to upgrade their sites. And the other thing I think I need to tell you is something about our students. We're in a very fortunate position at our school that, you know, there's an argument in Canada which undergraduate program is the most difficult to get in. And there's 3 schools, we're one of them, and we all argue. But ultimately, I think it gets down to 2, sort of like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs. There's our school and another school. And why I tell you that is, so we get 7,000 applications and we pick 400 students to our undergrad commerce program. And what that means is, whatever you ask them to do, they're going to do it. And because this is an elective, they don't have to do this. Everyone knows what the projects in this course are. And they know it's not an easy course. It's very demanding. And so what we get is the courses, the sections fill up, and there's a waiting list. So I know that they know that the word is out, that you've got to do, you know, real stuff in real time on the internet, and you have to grind. You have to be a grinder in this course to do well. And I think, I don't know what it's like at your school, if you have really good students, and if your course is an elective, but if it is, and you love what you do, you can do whatever you want. But I'd encourage you to think about having real life projects like this. The other advantage of them doing blogs and Shopify sites is when they go to interview and someone says, "Oh, what have you done?" They can simply say, "Well, here, let me, click this URL." And there it is. There it is. And that's a pretty powerful way to position themselves in a job market. In terms of the grading criteria for these projects, oh yeah, how do certifications work? There's no doubt in my mind that by them doing whichever of the 10 certificates we recommend, whichever 5, by the time they're at the end of the course and they're working on their blogs or their Shopify projects, they are able to integrate much better. There's less BS, and I'll show you some examples of that. And when we grade them and when I read these things, I can tell it's really, really good. And it wasn't that good a few years ago before I started doing certificates. But the big criteria here are social media marketing, they're paid and unpaid, and also their traffic and sales generated. And whether they do a written report or a video slide report, those criteria are the same. In other words, what gets measured gets done. I'm a big fan of that saying. So they have to validate with the metrics, with the analytical tools on the packages they use, that there's been some improvement. Now, if there hasn't been some improvement, there's some learning there too. Like they've tried some paid, or they've tried some organic campaigns with backlinks, or focusing on Insta versus TikTok, and whatever they're doing, they can certainly track it. And in a few cases, when it bombs, when you read what they've learned from it, it's a valuable exercise. So here's some examples of what a typical report looks like. Who are we, what we tried, and why, and analysis of the metrics, course concepts applied, lessons learned, what we would do differently, and benefits of doing this project. Here's an example of the slide deck. So they would do this with a voiceover, a PowerPoint, and or they can shoot a video of it. And the reason I picked this one is this guy got generated $33,081.33 in revenue by selling these little goofy plushies, probably to his entire family. I don't know, but I mean, that's the highest we've got so far from a Shopify project. The average seems to be, the range seems to be like $120 up to $33,000. And the mean is usually $700 or $800, which is still fine, which is still fun. And the certifications, as I said previously, really help them think about all of the things that they're trying in these real life projects. In terms of the blogs, the biggest criteria is the traffic marketing, increase in visitors, likes, links with other blogs, paid versus organic. And again, we give them the choice of doing a written report versus a video and a slide deck. And here's an example of a blog report done by 3 people. Again, why this topic, what we tried and why, the metrics, concepts used, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, the other thing I do that maybe many of you do too is when we present these projects, we have on file and we put on our website the top reports and slide decks from the previous term. We get permission for the students. Of course, they've all gotten those are the top A+ projects, and we post them. So students can go in and say, well, what's an A+ like? And so there are the reports, and on we go. And let me just go to, so a few years ago when we started, this was worth no marks, and we said, look, go get certificates because we think it's good, and the TA said. So these are the people out of 110 students who got a total of 509 certificates, and they were worth no marks. So clearly our students are drinking a lot of caffeine and Red Bull. This year, in the term that just ended, when they can earn 10 marks for getting 5 certificates, we had 94 earn a total of 414 HubSpot and Google certs. And all I do there is go to their LinkedIn profile, take their picture. And so certs is a big deal, and it's very helpful for the major projects that I do. And with that, I'd like to say thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Really appreciate it. So we're going to jump now to the Q&A portion of the webinar. And these are questions that were emailed in previously. So if we can have Karen and Brianne jump back in, turn your mics and your videos on. We'll go ahead and go through these questions in order. We'll have Karen first, then Brianne, then John. I'll get a chance to answer each of these. There are a few questions that might be directed to one individual, but feel free to comment in. If you have additional questions, feel free to chat them as well as we go through here.
Brandon,
so
it's telling me only 3 cams are able to be allowed simultaneously.
You don't need to see my face, so I'll turn my
Just letting you know.
Just visualize that smile that went away. There you go. I'm here with you. All right. So question number 1, what are the most important certifications for students to get in a marketing principles class versus those that graduate with a degree in marketing?
So, wow, that is a really good question, and it's interesting because if you ask different marketing professors or those who teach strategic communications, which that's the area that I come in from, you'll probably get different answers. But I do think that there should be a wide range of certifications, and as Brianna and John had mentioned, I think that there are some that are kind of industry standards that people are kind of look at, from the industry. And I think right now we're seeing more, industry professionals saying, yes, like we're familiar with Google certifications, HubSpots, and I do think you want to have a mix, kind of like what we see in the marketing mix. You want to have a mixture of certifications that highlight specific tools. I do think that it's essential to have like a social media marketing certification. So whether that's Hootsuite or HubSpot, that would be great. I do think having some sort of analytics focused tool certification like Google or even BrandWatch, that BrandWatch is more specific to their platform. I think that's essential. And then I would also recommend the platforms certifications. Like, I think what's really been great to see is that we've seen, of course, Facebook having their blueprint certification option to, be able to do. And that's the one that I know I've seen just some of the comments in chat about like the concern of online quizzing and cheating, and that's a big thing. And that's, I think, one of the distinctions that Facebook Blueprint does have is that their exam is proctored, but because it's proctored, it does add in an additional fee. So that's the fee that which goes into proctoring. So there is no cheating, essentially. So that's something to keep in mind. But I do think universally, like having students take Twitter Flight School, Pinterest Academy, which was launched last year, Snap Focus, and then even TikTok is adding their own certification. I would say the big things that you want to do is be well-rounded. I think a marketer has to be skilled in all the different tools available. So if you have kind of universal broad certifications that harness some of the strategies and concepts of marketing, but then highlight specializations, I think that mix really will be good for students to be able to have in their toolkit that they are able to showcase once in the workplace. But the thing about certifications is you can't rely only on them. And as John and Brianna mentioned, they have to be tied to how do you apply these lessons that you've learned and making those stronger connections. So that would be my.
Yeah, I agree with Karen. I would add to that, I completely agree about the diversity being important, the diversity of the different certifications, and maybe giving the students a say. And, if maybe we provided them with a list and then say, okay, you need to pick 5 of these. I like that option. I'm not necessarily saying that my 5 are the absolute best 5. They did align well. The other kind of way to look at it is based off of the textbook that you're using and the chapters within the text, what certifications kind of tie in with that chapter that week. And I did try to kind of align those when I was developing my course. And so I think that, like Karen said, is a good way to tie in, the information that they're learning from the text, then giving them a practical application of that. And then they have a takeaway that then is on their resume. So that would be my approach to it.
Yeah, I like both those answers. And what I did way back when I taught a fundamentalist course, I had to spend a lot of time trying to get my head around exactly what we just heard from Brianna about. What are the major chapters? What are the major projects? And what things can I add that add value? And so what I suggest to whoever asked that question is simply go to whichever certifications you've heard about here today and read a little bit about what's involved. So for example, the ones we recommend take between 3 and 5 hours to get, depending on your reading speed and your ability to go through the videos and do the tests. And when you see what's required and then you think about the chapters or how you're going to weave it into your course, it'll be easy for you to pick or to make recommendations given the content in your course.
Excellent insights. You guys briefly touched on this next question, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it again just in case there's anything else you want to add. How do you assign grades? For instance, the Google Analytics individual qualification. Do you accept a screenshot of their performance as a grade? Is it a pass-fail? What's your perspective and your approach with the assigned grades?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I know just even looking at the chat here about like whether it's like you get credit, no credit. And the way that I've described it is that, one, I actually have it as kind of like a semester-long project, but getting through the certification is just the tip of the iceberg. And what I actually have students do, there's two things, which sample assignments that I've done. One is I actually do a reflection assignment that I ask the students to basically recap, like, what did you learn? What were the major takeaways that you were able to get? And then also kind of reflecting, like, what would be things that you would add to the certification? And I do that a lot, especially with HubSpot, because I've done some work with them on their social media certification specifically. So I'm able to share with them saying, hey, I assigned this particular certification in my class. Here's the feedback of maybe if you're thinking about doing an update or a revision to the certification, here's what they're kind of getting. So it's valuable for the company to hear that. And I also feel too that they, have that extra level, because I know from some of the concerns with some of the educators, like, unfortunately, a lot of online. And so you really want to kind of combat that, like, especially for the free certifications, like it's up there, people, post online. You want to be able to kind of tie in back to having the students think critically. And so that's the thing that I grade. It's like, yeah, like you doing the certification, that's all fine and good, but I want to see what you've learned from the how that applies to other things that we're talking about in class, and how is this going to continue moving forward in your understanding in the field.
Right. No, that's great, Karen. I love that. For how I grade them, I require students to submit a PDF, a screenshot or PDF, and upload that into, we use Moodle, and that's our platform. And each of those certifications are 5 points. So that is what I do. So it's more for completion.
Yeah, that's what I do too. They have to send them to the TAs. The TAs keep the spreadsheet, and they simply have to validate that they got the email or the certificate from the source.
Fantastic. All right, third question. Do you recommend any certifications for professors?
Like, if you're a big believer of if you have to do it yourself, because I think that the students are going to ask that question, like, why am I doing this? And if they find out that you haven't done the certification, like, why are we doing this anyway? And I feel like this has been a motto that, and I'm very passionate about the subject, especially in social. And I mean, you could definitely tie this into marketing as well. Like, if you are assigning something for your students, you need to take it yourself to see what are the pitfalls, what are the things to watch for, what to let your students know, hey, FYI, this is something to be aware of. And I know I actually have had really good conversation with a lot of these companies, because I'm interested to kind of see how they basically determine whether or not someone takes their certification, that they know what they're looking at. And so I look at it from a different lens. And so when I take the exams, there's some exams that I've taken where I'm like, yeah, like anyone can take it, any student be able to take it. But then there's been other times where I've taken an exam, like Case Precision years ago had their own certification, and you had to get like a 90% on their exam to pass. And I'm thinking, okay, if I'm having difficulties with this, with the way that the questions are worded and the grading and this, the interface, I know my students are going to have issues with it. And so I would let them know, saying, hey, FYI, you might want to think about revising this. So I take the certifications, one, to let my students know, if I can do it, you can do it too. Two, it also lets them know, like, what are the things that they need to be wary of. Plus, I think for us in teaching, it's continued learning. Able to utilize and share these badges on our LinkedIn, whether it's through the platforms, like every platform, like whether you go through the Facebook Blueprint certification or even Twitter Flight School or some of these others, like you get your own badges that you can embed and add on your LinkedIn. So for us, it's continued learning that we're active in the profession as well, and I think it's a benefit across the board.
Sorry about that. I do think it's important to, try to take as many of the certifications as you're assigning, but I do think it's important too to be realistic. And if you do take that approach of here's 25 different certifications, 50 different certifications. I mean, obviously it would be great if we could, as professors, take all 25, take all 50, but that does get to be a lot to keep up with. And so I don't know, I see the pros and the cons there. Should you not have done any certifications as a professor and you're teaching this? No, you definitely need to have certifications under your belt, know the game, know what is expected, and be able to speak to those things. But I also don't know if it's completely realistic to always have every single, have a certification that's always completely up to date if there are depending on how expansive of a offering you're allowing your students to choose from. So I don't know, that's something to think about and figure out what works for you as a professor too. But I definitely agree with Karen, as many as you can take, the better.
Yeah, so I agree. We have 10. I've done them. 3 are absolutely horrible, but they're relevant. And the TAs, I follow the advice of the TAs here. And also the guest speakers we have come in are former students who are all running their own businesses now, and they give us a little bit of feedback. The only cause, so I warn you on, is the sort of certificates have to be updated every 2 years. So you're going to be back in school every few years, which is fine. And it is sort of fun to see how dumb you get. Like, why am I getting this answer wrong? And I knew I got it right last time. And maybe it's old age or something. But yeah, I'm a big fan of it.
That's one of the joys of this topic. You've got to stay current with the industry. Next question here. Pros and cons of institutions funding certifications for students. And do you have any examples of that?
Yeah, in terms of funding institutions for certifications, I think that this was actually something at the University of Louisville that we've kind of worked on, specifically with Facebook Blueprint. And one thing that I would like to kind of say too about these certifications, a lot of these companies really do want to work with educators on kind of coming together to kind of figure out what works and what doesn't. And so based on the research that, as I mentioned, my experience with HubSpot and Hootsuite, I had the chance a few years ago to actually work with Facebook Blueprint to work on revitalizing their new digital marketing certificate. And so with that being said, that was an extra cost. Like, it's $99 to take the exam. And so there are some students that are concerned with the funding related to certifications. And so one of the things that we did was we actually went to our development office to see if we were able to get some funding, maybe from a booster or alumni, that would help support our students being able to get the opportunity to take the exam and cover that. And so we were able to do that. And I think that's an option for us too. But what we had to provide was the rationale for why this certification would be kind of a game changer for our students, and how it would be considered to be one of the industry standards for certifications, with its, being proctored and everything. So I feel that with students understanding that they might be able to get support with that, they're more willing to be like, okay, that's great. But if they were paying it themselves, that's a cost is a big thing. But most of the time, the certifications that we've been talking about are free and available, which is something that I'm greatly appreciative of, as a professor, to be able to offer these great tools and resources and experiences to our students, that they don't have to, break the bank to get it.
I do see the value in some of the ones that do cost, like the one that Karen was mentioning earlier with Facebook. That definitely would be one that could be really beneficial to students. So I've not yet received funding or really asked for funding, but in the future, when I'm teaching this course, I definitely think that could bring nothing but better opportunities for the students.
Yeah, so we take we pivot a bit differently on that. So all our certificates must be free. Only because the purpose of our certificates that the students get is just to get in the door. Then, for example, when you get a job at Amazon, they will tell you what certificate programs they value, and they want you to get, and they'll take care of any related costs. And that's been our experience in Canada. So in our program, what we want you to get is free. And then once you graduate, and if you want to become more serious about digital, you can pay the $100 or $200 or $300, and that's on you or the company that you're working with.
So now that there's a new Google Analytics certification, the GA4, what are you doing to replace the old Google Analytics certification?
Because with being in strategic communication, we cover, and we give our students the option of Google Analytics, but there's actually a whole class that is dedicated to just Google Analytics in our business school. And so I'd have to check with my colleagues over there to kind of see what they're doing. But I tell my students, like a lot of them are going to be in positions where they're going to need to know Google Analytics. And whenever you bring up analytics, sometimes with my students are like, oh, that's math. And I'm like, yes, it's good. It's very applicable, very, very good. And Google does a really good job of harnessing this. And so for me, I really feel that it's not one of the main must-have certifications that I enforce in my classes. It's one of those where I'm like, it's recommended. I strongly recommend if you want to make sure that you're competitive with other job prospects and candidates that you do this. But I know in the business school, it's very much a key focus. I mean, they have a whole class dedicated to it. So, but I'd be interested in hearing what John and Brianne have to say.
In our program, we have a course on marketing analytics. They take care of that. They go into the depth and breadth of that, and so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and I specifically, this was my first class, I'll be honest, of teaching within digital marketing. And so it will be kind of something that I look into in the future. If I want to offer that, whether I want to expand on what my certifications are or keep it the same. So I'm open to, hearing what's the best way to go on all of this with this question.
We'll, as some of the feedback comes in on that question, we'll be sure to send that out as well. There was a question that was just chatted in I'd like to address. So one of them was, has anyone gotten pushback from students on the total cost of StuKent materials plus any certifications? And this individual said, I teach underserved students who almost all work multiple jobs and have to be super mindful of those costs. I'll let you guys answer, and then maybe I'll chime in at the end.
Yeah, no, I think that's at U of L, my students kind of come into different categories. And so a lot of them are first gen and they are paying their own way for school, whether it's multiple jobs or internships. So I'm always mindful of that. And that's why I've been working with the university, especially kind of getting that extra funding with our development office. And what's great is our community in the city is need professionals who know and have these skills. So with the alumni, I've worked with them saying, okay, here's kind of what we're looking at. Here's the syllabus. Here's what I'm covering in classes. If you are looking for professionals who need these skills, here's what we need to do to make sure that they are able to get these skills. And so luckily we have a president, her name is President Benacuti. She's been fantastic and she's really student oriented. And so she's been able to really help foster some of those connections. So we've been able to bring those resources for free to our students. But it is a big issue. I'm very mindful. I'm not going to sign, a project like tons of books or tons of materials that are going to cost students thousands of dollars. But what I want to do is, if there is a cost to the students, I'm going to find the ways in which I can make sure that everyone has the get these skills. And I would recommend reaching out to your development office, because they're always looking for projects that they can reach out to donors who may have an interest, may have a passion. And looking at, the rise of digital marketing and social media, it's an essential skill that we need to make sure that we have the right tools and resources for our students. So I would strongly say, maybe have a conversation there to see if there could be some sort of scholarship fund or resource fund that will support you.
Yeah, I agree. I did not specifically have pushback from any students. The bundle price for the Digital Marketing Essentials eText and the Mimic Social Simulation was $120. And then all the certifications that I had students do were free. And so based off of that, no one really complained. I didn't have anyone have trouble that I know of, but I do think it is important that maybe that's something I just learned. I mean, maybe I should add in a little line of if the, you know, if could be a financial burden for you, or if you're concerned about the cost, let me know. And then reaching out to the department or the university and trying to establish some sort of funding. Because I do think it's important that we advocate for this and that we have opportunities for students, and they shouldn't be held back just because it could be too burdensome financially.
So I think StuCan is like the best bang for the buck in the world of marketing resources. If you use the expert videos, which we do, so there's over 50 of them, and the fact that they have access to these resources for life, and it's only like, I don't know, $80 or $85 US. I know in our university what other courses cost students. And this is at the lower end. This is at the lower end. So at our university, this is great value.
We're about out of time now, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Any final thoughts that either of you want to share, just to send us off here before I share some final announcements?
Yeah, I mean, I would
Really, just feel free to email any of us. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead. Yeah, no, I think that this has been
I was
great.
just gonna say the lag on this computer.
No, go for
I'm
it,
so
Bree.
sorry, Karen. I was just saying, feel free to, you know, reach out with questions via email. I know we would all be more than happy to share resources and, you know, answer any other questions that you may not have had time to ask today.
So final announcements to wrap up here. So we have an exclusive early access to the StuKent Digital Marketing Certification Exam. So that should just have popped up on your screen. Pricing, it is free with the bundle or with just our Digital Marketing Essentials purchase. It's $79.99 by itself. I'm guessing we're going to have a lot of questions coming through on this. And so stay tuned. We'll have an email going out shortly on some of the information here. There's also a link that's going to come in here that's going to show off the search results from the StuKent certificates that we give out that are certificates of completion for our simulations. So each student that completes our simulation gets a certificate of completion. It shows off the skills that they've acquired in the process. And so this link will actually be cool for you to kind of scroll through and see what students are saying as they share this certificate on their LinkedIn. So feel free to check that out. It's cool to see students bragging about what they've been able to accomplish in a short window of time. Next announcement is that we've got a Write With Us page that will be sent here in the chat as well. So we're interested in looking for additional authors. So if you have interest in writing about a given topic, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to learn more about what that topic might be and your interest there. Keep an eye out for the recording of this webinar. We will have that coming to you this afternoon in your inbox. And then finally, just to wrap it up, I just want to say thank you, Karen, Brianne, and John. It was a pleasure. Fantastic hearing your perspective. I really loved the reflection assignment. I thought that was especially important as these students are getting inundated with so many things throughout the semester. If they're taking time to reflect on a given subject, whether it's the certification exam that they just took or the project that they completed in your class, I think that's going to allow them to really step back and learn and think about what they've learned in your class specifically. And I think that's going to be a highlight for their semester. So thanks for sharing those insights. And then if you have some time in the next little bit here, go ahead and take this certification exam that we just completed. So we had a panel of industry advisors and academics, Karen's on that panel, that have reviewed these questions and the rigor of these questions and the validity of these questions. And so go ahead and test your knowledge. Take this exam, make sure you can pass it, and then prepare your students to do the same. Let's go make a difference in the world of digital marketing. So thank you very much. Have a fantastic day. Yeah.